I started Fort Gansevoort with my wife about 18 months ago. Thanks to Susan Howe and Anne Carson and the whole Barbara and the New Directions team for doing this great small series with us. It's an honor to have all of you guys here. Thanks to everyone who's come through. This is the last day of our Alan Cody exhibition. So I encourage you, when the reading is over, if you want to head up to the third floor and make your way down, you can see the whole show. It's the third floor, the second floor, which you're on, and the ground floor. Yeah, thanks very much, and I think are we taking questions at the end, or are we not? No, we're not. Okay. Wonderful. So enjoy, and yeah, thanks so much for coming out.
Thank you.
So thank you, Adam, and we have some room in the front row if anyone would like to take a seat. So welcome to the final event of our reading series co-hosted with Fort Gansevoort Gallery. This evening we are joined by Anne Carson and Susan Howe. Anne Carson is a poet, essayist, and professor of classics. The New York Times Magazine writes, "For 2 decades, her work has moved, phrase by phrase, line by line, project by improbable project, in directions that a human brain would never naturally move." In December, New Directions will publish Anne's new translation of Euripides' The Bacchae. Susan Howe is a poet and essayist. The Boston Review calls her a rigorously skeptical and a profoundly visionary poet. Of her essays, John Ashbery writes, "Susan Howe taps a stream of American thinking that is as clear and fresh as a draught of well water." It was also just announced that Susan is the recipient of the 2017 Frost Medal for Lifetime Achievement in Poetry. So congratulations. So thank you all for being here, and please join me in welcoming Anne and Susan.
Hi, good evening. Oops, thank you for coming. Thank you, yes. Thank you for coming, I said that. It's strange to be so close to people one reads to. It's a great honor to read with Susan Howe, whom I have admired distantly for a long time. So I'm going to go first. I'm going to read the Albertine Workout, which is an essay in 59 short paragraphs that I wrote when I was in withdrawal after finishing reading Proust, because there seemed suddenly to be nothing else in the world worth reading. So to extend the Proustian experience, I decided to write an essay about Albertine, his character Albertine. Number 1, Albertine, the name, is not a common name for a girl in France, although Albert is widespread for a boy. 2. Albertine's name occurs 2,363 times in Proust's novel, more than any other character. 3. Albertine herself is present or mentioned on 807 pages of Proust's novel. 4. On a good 19% of these pages, she is asleep. 5. Albertine is believed by some critics, including André Gide, to be a disguised version of Proust's chauffeur, Alfred Agostinelli. This is called the transposition theory. 6. Albertine constitutes a romantic, psychosexual, and moral obsession for the narrator of the novel, mainly throughout Volume 5 of Proust's 7-volume in the Pléiade edition work. 7. Volume 5 is called La Prisonnière in French and The Captive in English. It was declared by Roger Shattuck, a world expert on Proust, in his award-winning 1974 study, to be the one volume of the novel that a time-pressed reader may safely and entirely skip. 8. The problems of Albertine are, from the narrator's point of view, A. Lying, B. Lesbianism. And from Albertine's point of view, A, being imprisoned in the narrator's house. 9. Her bad taste in music, although several times remarked on, is not a problem. 10. Albertine does not call the narrator directly by his name anywhere in the novel, nor does anyone else. The narrator hints that his first name might be the same first name as that of the author of the novel, that is, Marcel. Let's go with that. 11. Albertine denies she is a lesbian when Marcel questions her. 12. Her friends are all lesbians. 13. Her denials fascinate him. 14. Her friends fascinate him too, especially by their contrast with his friends, who are gay but very closeted. Her friends parade themselves at the beach and kiss in restaurants. 15. Despite intense and assiduous questioning, Marcel cannot discover what exactly it is that women do together. This palpitating specificity of female pleasure, as he calls it. 16. Albertine says she does not know. 17. Once Albertine has been imprisoned by Marcel in his house, his feelings change. It was her freedom that first attracted him, the way the wind billowed in her garments. This attraction is now replaced by a feeling of ennui, boredom. She becomes, as he says, a heavy slave. 18. This is predictable given Marcel's theory of desire, which equates possession of another person with erasure of the otherness of her mind, while at the same time positing otherness as what makes another person desirable. 19. And in point of fact, how can he possess her mind if she is a lesbian? 20. His fascination continues. 21. Albertine is a girl in a flat sports cap, pushing her bicycle across the beach when Marcel first sees her. He keeps going back to this image. 22. Albertine has no family, profession, or prospects. She is soon installed in Marcel's house. There she has a separate bedroom. He emphasizes that she is nonetheless an obedient person. See above on Albertine as heavy slave. 23. Albertine's face is sweet and beautiful from the front, but from the side has a hook-nosed aspect that fills Marcel with horror. He would take her face in his hands and reposition it. 24. The state of Albertine that most pleases Marcel is Albertine asleep. 25. By falling asleep, she becomes a plant, he says. 26. Plants do not actually sleep, nor do they lie, or even bluff. They do, however, expose their genitalia. 27a. Sometimes in her sleep, Albertine throws off her kimono and lies naked. B. Sometimes then Marcel possesses her. C. Albertine appears not to wake up. 28. Marcel appears to think he is the master of such moments. 29. Perhaps he is. At this point, parenthetically, several observations could be made about the similarity between Albertine and Ophelia, Hamlet's Ophelia, starting from the sexual life of plants, which Proust and Shakespeare equally enjoy using as a language of female desire. Albertine, like Ophelia, embodies for her lover blooming girlhood, but also castration, casualty, threat, and pure obstacle. Albertine, like Ophelia, is condemned for a voracious sexual appetite whose expression is denied her. Ophelia takes sexual appetite into the river and drowns it amid water plants. Albertine distorts hers into the false consciousness of a sleep plant. In both scenarios, the man appears to be in control of the script, yet he gets himself tangled up in the wiles of the woman. On the other hand, who is bluffing whom is hard to say. 30. Albertine's laugh has the color and smell of a geranium. 31. Marcel gives Albertine the idea that he intends to marry her, but he does not. She bores him. 32. Albertine's eyes are blue and saucy. Her hair is like crinkly black violets. 33. Albertine's behavior in Marcel's household is that of a domestic animal, which enters any door it finds open or comes to lie beside its master on his bed, making a place for itself. Marcel has to train Albertine not to come into his room until he rings for her. 34. Marcel gradually manages to separate Albertine from all her friends, whom he regards as evil influences. 35. Marcel never uses the word lesbian to Albertine. He says, "the kind of woman I object to." 36. Albertine denies she knows any such women. Marcel assumes she is lying. 37. At first, Albertine has no individuality. Indeed, Marcel cannot distinguish her from her girlfriends or remember their names or decide which one to pursue. They form a frieze in his mind, pushing their bicycles across the beach with the blue waves breaking behind them. 38. This pictorial multiplicity of Albertine evolves gradually into a plastic and moral multiplicity. Albertine is not a solid object. She is unknowable. When Marcel brings his face close to hers to kiss, she is 10 different Albertines in succession. 39. One night Albertine goes out dancing with a girlfriend at the casino. 40. When questioned about this, she lies. 41. Albertine is not a natural liar. 42. Albertine lies so much and so badly that Marcel is drawn into the game. He lies too. 43. Marcel's jealousy, impotence, and desire are all exasperated to their highest pitch by the game. 44. Who is bluffing whom is hard to say. See above on Hamlet. 45. Near the end of Volume 5, Albertine finally runs away, vanishing into the night and leaving the window open. Marcel fusses and fumes and writes her a letter in which he claims he had just decided to buy her a yacht and a Rolls Royce when she disappeared. Now he will have to cancel those orders. The yacht had a price tag of 27,000 francs, about $75,000, and was to be engraved at the prow with her favorite stanza of a poem by Mallarmé. 46. Albertine's death by riding accident on page 642 of Volume 5 does not emancipate Marcel from jealousy. It removes only one of the innumerable Albertines he would have to forget. The jealous lover cannot rest until he is able to touch all the points in space and time ever occupied by the beloved. 47. There is no right or wrong in Proust, says Samuel Beckett, and I believe it. The bluffing, however, remains a gray area. 48. Let's return to the transposition theory. 49. On May 30th, 1914, French newspapers reported that Alfred Agostinelli, a student aviator, fell from his machine into the Mediterranean Sea near Antibes and was drowned. Agostinelli, you recall, was the chauffeur whom Proust, in letters to friends, admitted that he not only loved, but adored. Proust had bought Alfred the aeroplane, which cost 27,000 francs, about $75,000, and had had it engraved on the fuselage with a stanza of Mallarmé. Proust also paid for Alfred's flying lessons and registered him at the flying school under the name Marcel Swann. The flying school was in Monaco. In order to spy on Alfred while he was there, Proust sent another favorite manservant, whose name was Albert. 50. Compare and contrast Albertine's sudden fictional death by runaway horse with Alfred Agostinelli's sudden real-life death by runaway plane. Poignantly, both unfortunate beloveds managed to speak to his or her lover from the wild blue yonder. Agostinelli, before setting out for his final flight, had written a long letter, which Proust was heartbroken to receive the day after the plane crash. Transposed to the novel, this exit scene becomes one of the weirdest in fiction. 51. Several weeks after accepting the news that Albertine has been thrown from her horse and killed, Marcel gets a telegram. "You think I'm dead, but I'm alive and long to see you. Affectionately, Albertine." Marcel agonizes for days about this news and debates with himself whether he could possibly resume relations with her, only to realize that the signature on the telegram has been misread by the telegraph operator. The telegram is not from Albertine at all, but from another long-lost girlfriend whose name, Gilberte, shares its central letters with Albertine's. 52. One only loves that which one does not entirely possess, says Marcel. 53. There are 4 ways Albertine is able to avoid becoming entirely possessed in Volume 5. By sleeping, by lying, by being a lesbian, and by being dead. 54. Only the first 3 of these can she bluff. 55. Proust was still correcting a typescript of La Prisonnière on his deathbed, November 1922. He was fine-tuning the character of Albertine and working into her speech certain phrases from Alfred Agostinelli's final letter. 56. It is always tricky, the question whether to read an author's work in light of his life or not. 57. Granted, the transposition theory is a graceless, intrusive, and saddening hermeneutic, in the case of Proust it is also irresistible. Here is one final spark to be struck from rubbing Alfred against Albertine, as it were. Let's consider the stanza of poetry that Proust had inscribed on the fuselage of Alfred's plane, the same verse that Marcel promises to engrave on the prow of Albertine's yacht. From her favorite poem, he says, it is 4 verses of Mallarmé, about a swan that finds itself frozen into the ice of a lake in winter. Swans are, of course, migratory birds. This one, for some reason, failed to fly off with its fellow swans when the time came. What a weird and lonely shadow to cast on these 2 love affairs, the fictional and the real. What a desperate analogy to offer of the lover's final wintry paranoia of possession. As Hamlet says to Ophelia, accurately but ruthlessly, "You should not have believed me." 58. This is a stanza of Mallarmé in English. A swan of olden times remembers that it is he, the one magnificent but without hope of setting himself free, for he failed to sing of a region for living, when barren winter burned all around him with ennui. 59. Everything indeed is at least double. La Prisonnière, page 362. The end.
I'm just wondering if I stood up, would it be on the people in the, is it more hearable?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
You're,
Yes.
that would be better?
Yes.
Okay, I'll do it. All right, so. Even though. Anyway. So I'm okay?
I think so.
I'm very, very honored to be reading with Anne Carson. I'm a tremendous fan of her work. So it's kind of scary, but anyway, I'm reading from the foreword of a book that New Directions is going to publish called Depths, Debths. I'm partly reading it because it has to do with quite a bit with painting, and that I actually went to art school with Al Cody, and 100 years ago. And we were from 4 years together, so I'm quite moved to be reading with his work. Okay, this is called Forward. Going back, going back. Little Sir Echo, how do you do? Hello, 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 hello. Little Sir Echo will answer you. Hello, 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 hello. Won't you come over and play, and play? You're a nice little fellow, I know by your voice, but you're always so far away. Bing Crosby and the Music Maids, 1939. When I was 8, my parents packed me off to Little Sir Echo Camp for Girls on Lake Armington in the foothills of New Hampshire, co-founded and owned by Mary Hosington and Margaret Conaboy, 10 years older. Apparently the women chose the name because of an echo that bounces off the surrounding White Mountains. That was our camp song. An actual child may or may not fit parental fantasies. I hated the place. Most of all, I dreaded riding classes and spent many nights praying I would be assigned the tired elderly horse with a creaking stomach for the next day's obligatory ride around the ring. On one visiting day allowed per summer, we rode across the lake and picnicked on a secluded beach at the edge of a pine forest. I begged them to ransom me, but no. Around 4 p.m. they left for Boston, leaving me alone with my dread of being lost in the past, absent. Show me affection as a small, non-understanding person. 2 people with covered lanterns stand on the brow of adjacent foothills. Watch them walking forward from folklore, carrying tilted umbrellas. Faint whispers, galaxy clusters. Telescopes also need to be tilted a little so that light traveling down an optical tube will come into play. Calendar songs, family trees, broken branches, love songs, songs of captives, songs of robbers, songs around the campfire. A tune beyond us, yet ourselves, a tune upon the blue guitar. That's Stevens. Chicarawa is the highest mountain peak in New Hampshire. When Chief Chicarawa leapt from its rocky summit to his death on the rocks below, war was in his heart. He put a curse on the land. Last night, at the end of night, his starry head, like the head of fate, looked out in darkness. Chicarawa to its neighbor is one of my favorite Wallace Stevens poems. Let's face things exactly as they are. He led a double life as a successful surety and fidelity claims lawyer. Speaking of the practice of law in relation to writing and second sight, Peter Rugg, the Missing Man, is the first of two tall tales written by William Austin, 1778 through 1841, a Massachusetts attorney. Austin presents its source as an old New England legend. An absent husband responsible for his own mysterious ruin is condemned to wander with his small daughter in a one-horse chair, perpetually searching for Boston. In one of Nathaniel Hawthorne's lesser stories, a virtuoso's collection, Rugg crops up with Peter Schlemiel's lost shadow and a famed New Hampshire gemstone. The precious jewel, said to sparkle like a meteor, called for another Hawthorne story, The Great Carbuncle of the White Mountains, this time inspired by an Amerindian fable from Saco, Maine. A manic Ruggian seeker wanders among mountains, searching for the marvelous stone until the end of time. Some scholars say Austin's tall tale also foreshadows Wakefield, which in its turn triggers Melville's Bartleby the Scrivener. There are names under things and names inside names. Poor Rugg, little knowest thou thine own insignificance in this great world. Long ago, people were afraid of mountains. The how and the why reflected in mystery plays and troll mythologies. Only artworks are capable of transmitting phonic echo signals. Full many a glorious morning have I seen flatter the mountaintops with sovereign eye. In the fall of 1889, Leonora Piper, the famous Boston medium, spent a week with William James and his wife at their house at Chicarawa for discussions concerning the various aspects of trance phenomena, including her trance talk with Finwi, a former native of this world. One afternoon they took a break from work and went fishing. Mrs. Piper caught the largest bass ever recorded in the lake. There, messages flow through clear lake water, and yes, gravity pulls matter together to form a cosmic web. Even if this looks like the end of my picnic at Lake Armington story, the three of us are strung together like beads on a necklace. My fingers are too arthritic to work the little clasp. It's for the others. The work in Depths was originally inspired by Paul Tech's retrospective called Diver in 2011. I've always been interested in folk tales, magic, lost languages, riddles, coincidence, and missed connections. What struck me most was the way his later works often painted swatches of color spread across sheets of newspaper with single words, phrases, or letters scribbled over the already doubled surface. Transformed these so-called art objects into the riddles, spells, and magical thinking I experienced one afternoon in the old Whitney Marcel Breuer building. I particularly loved the small bronze sculptures titled The Personal Effects of the Pied Piper, scattered here and there. Shortly afterwards, I spent a month as an artist in residence at the Gardner Museum in Boston. In 1903, Isabella Stewart Gardner personally installed her collection of over 2,500 objects in a building modeled on the Palazzo Barbaro in Venice. A view of the same palace from the Iron Bridge in Venice served as the model for Millie Thiel's palazzo in The Wings of the Dove. Enjoyment of the public forever, unquote. on the condition that her original arrangement of the objects in each gallery or named room would be kept just as she left them. Nothing was to be added, shifted, or sold. If her arrangements were disturbed, the property on what was once saltwater marshland in the Fenway-Kenmore area, which she liked to call Venice on the Fens, including the art objects inside, would be auctioned and the proceeds would go to Harvard University. The document was drafted and drawn up by her friend Professor John Shipman Gray, a member of the Harvard Law faculty and the author of Restraints on the Alienation of Property, the Rule Against Perpetuities, and the Nature and Sources of the Law. Restraints, currently known as RAP, is encountered, often dreaded, by contemporary American law students. Soon, soon you will find the clue. In 1999, the museum directors felt it was time to, quote, embark on a strategic planning process to plan for the future, unquote. They decided to build an addition to the original structure in order to relieve pressure on the aging interior spaces. In 2012, the added wing, designed by Renzo Piano, opened to the public. Visitors now enter the original Willard T. Sears damp, dimly lit, late Victorian faux Venetian structure by passing through a minimalist glass and steel corridor. At 10:15 one November morning, a beam of sun slipped across the threshold. An echoing plash of water issuing from the mouths of stone dolphins blended with the scent of fresh red poinsettias, jade plants, and pyracanthia in the atrium, while light flickering across ceramic floor tiles in the adjoining Spanish cloister made them seem blue as the blue in Paul Tech's untitled synthetic polymer and gesso on newspaper diver paintings. Wandering through the inner rooms before and after visiting hours, when whimsical combinations and odd analogies assume a second life, I began to think of Gardner as a pioneer American installation artist. In the dimly lit Titian room, Titian's The Rape of Europa, 1561 through 62, is displayed directly above a long swatch of pale green silk cut from her wedding dress, designed by Charles Frederick Worth in 1860. I am drinking myself drunk with Europa and then sitting for hours, she told her friend Bernard Berenson after he acquired it for her collection. I wonder if she was a drinker like my mother. Isabella's little chair with its light blue slipcover is placed directly in front of Christ carrying the cross, 1505-1510, Circle of Giovanni Bellini. She has hung the portrait so that his tear-streaked face, half-shadowed by the angle of the wooden cross, is aimed directly at Jupiter's savage eye in Europa. The Savior will not give up and be silent in true righteousness as a painted image. The pages of A.B. Kemp's Note to a Memoir on the Theory of Mathematical Form are shattered to pieces. The filing cases are old, some of them shaky, with loose covers and broken corners. Mrs. Gardner didn't live to learn that in string theory matter falls in. So the less said here concerning the ultimate nature of possible worlds and supermassive black holes in this our God-forsaken 21st century, the better. Long, thinly transparent, slightly jaded gray window shades in the Raphael room serve as a scrim or screen memory, sheltering the goods in her faux Venetian vessel from moving traffic and pedestrians outside. The walls are covered with elegant maroon fabric. Today, a beam from the nuclear-hearted sun lights on a "Please do not touch" sign before mercurially settling on the Annunciation by Pier Matteo d'Amelia, 1450 through 1503, oil on wood, and then on Carlo Crivelli's St. George, 1470. Crivelli has depicted the saint as a thin teenager on a rearing horse with his sword joyfully lifted to slay the dragon. The horse's head jerks the other way. Its eye is distorted with terror. Life, soul, color, bearing, shape, size, magnitudo, figura, habitus corporis, anima. Stanza the sea, earth the sea. Fishman in Excelsis Table, 1970 through 71. Mixed media, wood, latex, wax, metal, paint, fabric, string, and styrofoam. My body is made of bones. In time of trouble and perplexity, I am able to bend my limbs and stretch myself into a forsaken merman. But oh, little school chair with Manhattan cityscape hung at child's eye level, I wish I were young again. If I had only known earlier that indeterminacy involves all of life, I might fathom the luminous story surrounding all things noumenal. The portrait of a lady in black, 1590s, once attributed to Jacopo Tintoretto, 1580 through 1594, and later to his son, Domenico, is at the top of the third floor landing, just to the right of the Veronese room entrance. According to the guidebook, Tintoretto's portrait of a Venetian woman is a glorification of wealth and station rather than a character study. More care is focused on the contrast between decorative details of jewels, lace, and curtain than on the roughly defined yet vividly lit landscape seen to the upper right. The sitter remains a cipher. Her personality, as much as her identity, a mystery. How do you match people as they seem on the surface with who they actually are? I assume she's a widow because her clothes are black. We have so little time in the distant present. Echo cannot stop reflecting the original enchantment of the good mother beyond representation. Her eye of nature absorbed in surface azure of poise and balance, rhythmic rise and fall of words, their deep ecology and threads of divinity. Hush, be quiet, deep green pagan marvels. You see the double evidence as the place, the time, the fashion of other lives determined by grounds outside our power, which leaves the good mother absorbed in you here on the landing, in peace and plenty. I try as hard as I can to wish myself into your present through art, foreshadowing life after death, for some notes of promise that the aesthetic holds out or holds on to an idea of the formal rigors of poetry as light and impulse. Then the free cause of expression may return to the morality of things I want to remember as first things last. Gardner has placed a painting high on the east wall in the center of an older tapestry resembling a wishing carpet, all swirls of plants and people gesturing. The embroidered damask serves as a double frame. Our Lady of the Labyrinth, captured in oscillating memory folds of simple household affections, exhibits her glistening necklace armor. Standing here in early evening, when the viewers are leaving and the lights are dimmed, I remember Mary Minnie Temple's personal letters to John Shipman Gray and Henry James's splendidly written passages in The Wings of the Dove, when Millie Thiel, Minnie's fictional double, wandering through one of the great gilded chambers of Matcham, sees herself mirrored in Bronzino's portrait of a woman. Quote, "The lady in question, at all events, with her slightly Michelangelesque squareness, her eyes of other days, her full lips, her long neck, her recorded jewels, her brocaded and wasted reds, was a very great personage, only unaccompanied by a joy. And she was dead, 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 unquote. It's late November. Fallen oak and maple leaves on the sidewalk outside are bound to childhood landscape memories filtered through my mother, who never stopped harping on the cruel ugliness of Boston as compared to Dublin's fair city. For me, there are two alternatives: either swallow or break free. The rule against perpetuities resembles a postmodern labyrinth in need of a golden thread. Some poets and lawyers keep trying. Some groping through intricate passages, half paralyzed, never do. John Gray stands in for my father. As life rushes by, we do our best with the nerves we inherit. The guards at the entrance are watching, so we won't get away with anything. Strange that one half-suffocated picnic in the course of life can disappear into Lake Armington's hanging rock echo portals, until the replication of love prevails in art and Periscope, one of Paul Tech's late picture light paintings, bubbles up from puddled blue depths. So many things happen by bringing to light what has long been hidden, lilting betwixt and between. Between what? Oh, everything. Take your microphone. Cross your voice with the ocean. I'm here. I'm still American. I guess I'll stop there.
Howe and Anne Carson, and this reading ends our series with Fort Gansevoort. Thank you so much to Adam and the gallery for having us. And we have wine and books for sale. So thank you for coming.